Okay, just a short discussion on the knives. This is the last one I did on the video, and this is uh, natural polished hemp I got at Walmart. Okay, easy to get. It's for making jewelry and stuff. I think it's for making necklaces or beaded wristbands and stuff. Anyway, this is a Horse Creek chert, I think, heat treat. This is the antler handle, obviously. White-tailed deer. I removed the burr entirely because I don't like the burrs on my knives. Usually I don't use this part of the antler for the knife handle, but I had a bunch of this stuff left over from making Flintknapping billets a long time ago. This one was a little bit small for a billet, so I just saved it. Anyway, I took the burr completely off, and I cut the notch with a bandsaw, so I cheated on the notch, but I used a file to recess this area so that the binding doesn't stick up past the level of the antler. I like it to be, smooth. I don't like to feel that transition between the antler and the wrapping. All right. These are side projects, these two knives that I've had in the works for months. Okay, so these are not going to be available in the auction. These are just side projects, but I decided to film it just so I can show you what I do. Okay, I have used rawhide, I have used sinew, and I've used thread, all kinds of different bindings. Now if I do a natural binding and a natural glue, I always get this question, what do I use for a natural glue? My favorite natural glue is asphaltum with gum base. Gum base is from the rubber tree or other rubbery sap producing plants. Okay, it's gum base. We get it from the latex tree nowadays, but you can also get it in the form of chicle or chicle, something like that. It's a different kind of tree, I think. But anyway, I'm not sure on that. Anyway, they don't sell the chicle anymore as a gum base, but they do sell the latex variety, and it's for making chewing gum. Okay, so actually you can use chewing gum to half these as long as you mix it with roofing tar or something. Okay, so roofing tar and chewing gum is the modern version of asphaltum and gum base. If I want to use a natural glue, I use asphaltum and gum base. Now, do I use pine pitch glues? Yes. But here in Texas, where I am now, in the summertime, when it gets up above 100 degrees and you use pine pitch glue, it's going to be all runny. It's going to start running and flowing out, and it's not going to be good for a hafting glue. It just melts at, I'm not sure what the melting point is, but it gets really soft at 100 degrees. And if you leave it in your car, cars easily get up to 150 degrees inside the car on a hot day in summer. And if you got your stuff in there, all that pine pitch is going to run and get all over everything. But asphaltum doesn't run like that. It doesn't do the same thing as pine pitch. It stays more gooey and globular. It doesn't run. It doesn't just turn into a liquid and start running out. All right, so I prefer asphaltum and gum base when I use natural glue, but you can use pine pitch, especially in colder temperatures. All right, so you don't have to worry about it getting all runny and melted if the temperatures are always below 90 or below 80 or something. Okay, and do I use a fiber or a scat or charcoal in my pine pitch glue? No. I did when I first started, like everybody else. I would use, but I wouldn't use scat or, deer poop or rabbit poo or anything like that. I would use cut up hemp or cut, what is it? It's not sisal fiber, it's jute. Jute fibers are very, very fine, so I'd cut a lot of jute fibers and mix that in. Okay. It worked okay. But I prefer not to get into that sort of thing, so because it just takes too much time for me anyway. I just like to have a bunch of asphaltum on hand. You can find them on beaches, on some beaches, especially in California. They're just big globs of tar that just wash up on the shore. I don't know how often we can find it these days. The substitute for it, obviously, is roofing tar or some sort of asphaltum that's used for paving streets and stuff. Okay, but then these days they always mix it with some other type of artificial or petroleum-based product that makes it more flexible to be used in streets and rooftops and stuff. So you can't find it in a pure state unless you buy asphaltum in the pure state, and it's usually in a powder form. Okay, but you can melt it down and get globs of it after melting the powder. Okay, it's a long story, but that's what I use. I don't use pine pitch anymore very much, although I am going to be using it coming up here soon because everyone asks me my formulas for my glues, so I will do that. I do have a formula for my pine pitch glues and stuff. If you want to look up other formulas for pine resin, you can look up Cutler's resin. Cutler. Cutler's resin. There's a lot of formulas for Cutler's resin, and most of them are a combination of pine pitch and some sort of powder, like a brick dust and beeswax. Those three ingredients: beeswax, pine pitch, and dust. Now, Native Americans didn't have beeswax. Okay, keep that in mind. Before Europeans arrived, Native Americans did not have beeswax for their glues. So they just used pine rosin and other saps that are gooey. They also use water-based glues. You can use hide glue in there. You can use other types of resins from various plants. You can even use a starch, plant starch. Elmer's glue is a plant starch glue. You can use plant starch in the joint of that. But most artifacts that have survived with the glue have an asphaltum-based glue, not a pine pitch glue. All right, so keep that in mind too. All right, so that's this knife. You got to see me half this on video. Now, I just finished this one up. There was an issue with this one in that I didn't cut this I didn't cut this right because it started to bunch up down here. The thread bunched up here and it was not wrapping evenly. You know what I'm saying? It was bunching up down here and I had to kind of spread it out a little bit up on top just to get it to match the line of demarcation here in the antler where it dropped down. So what I did on this one is I made sure that I cut this with enough room down here so that this wouldn't bunch up too much. But it still bunched up a little bit, but it's not too bad. All right, that was the main issue. See how this is a straighter line there. I should have gone straighter down, more straight down here, so that they wouldn't bunch up right in this area. But it turned out okay. I had to push in this thread or this cordage. I had to keep pushing it as the glue was drying to get it to fit in there smoothly. And I just finished this one up. The glue is just barely dry. It's still not quite dry in between, but it worked out quite well. I didn't use a file on this. I cheated and used a sander, my belt sander, to sand that down. Okay, this is whitetail antler also, but it's a different part of the antler. It's not the part near the skull. It's one tine over. I think I've discussed that in a different video. Okay, this is the pith of the antler. When I cut it, I have to sand it there, and it exposes some of the pith. but I like using this part of the antler and not the part that's near the skull. That's just me, okay? So same glue in here. I use modern hot melt glue. In case you don't know, you can get black hot melt. This is commercially available black hot melt glue. I got it on eBay. Yeah, 7mm. I don't know what country it comes from. Probably from China, right? Anyway. This is just a very inexpensive hot glue gun. I think I got this at Walmart for like $7 or something. Works perfectly well. Make sure you get the low temperature version. There's a high temperature version of this and a low temperature version. Get the low temperature version because when you use hot melt that's black like this, it has asphaltum in it and it will bubble. If it's too hot, it'll start bubbling and it'll push too much glue out the tip. And you'll have a mess. It'll start bubbling and percolating and popping out of it and getting all over the place. And it'll back up here. It'll start spitting out glue from the back of this. How do I know? I don't know. All right, so if you want to use something waterproof like this, I use Type Bond waterproof glue. Okay. If I want to do a natural waterproofing, then I will melt some pine resin and apply the pine resin while it's hot and keep it hot. Hemp and natural cordage can be heated very hot without damaging it. If you use sinew and heat it hot enough to liquefy pine glue to put it over the top, or pine pitch, it damages the sinew. It cooks it. But with hemp or some other cordage, plant-based cordage, you can heat the cordage, heat the pitch, and apply it with a stick. And it's very liquidy, and you can keep it really, really hot, and then take another stick or something and brush it and while it's in a liquid state and make it nice and smooth. And of course, if it's kind of rough afterwards, you can sand it. All right. But if you use sinew with that extremely hot pine pitch varnish, it's like a varnish when it's very liquidy. It'll damage the sinew. It'll cook it. It'll make it weaker. So keep that in mind. Okay. How did the Native Americans waterproof their sinew? Asphaltum, mostly. Doesn't asphaltum get really, really hot? You might ask. Yes, it does. And they would apply a thick coat over the sinew. So what that tells me is what they probably did is just use the sinew to hold the stone in place, just barely in place, just enough to where the glue can take over and provide most of the strength. The sinew is just to hold the blade in place and not to add strength to it. And they use big globs of asphaltum as the strong part of the joint, as basically the binder. Now, did they mix fibers and stuff with asphaltum? Do the artifacts that have asphaltum have fiber within the asphaltum? Not that I know of. There are some hair remnants in some of those artifacts, but that's the only fibers that I have heard of or seen when they test the asphaltum. There is hair, so I guess they could. I don't know if the hair got in there because they were skinning with it, and it just got in because of the, the body heat is kind of makes the asphaltum a little bit soft, and the hair would get all in there and stick to the asphaltum on the outside. And then when they test the asphaltum 1,000 years later, they detect hair in there. Or maybe they mixed hair with the asphaltum. I don't know. Hair can withstand a lot of heat too, so I suppose that it would stand up to being heated with the asphaltum, but I don't know. I know that plant fiber does stand up to heat. Okay, it's personal experience. I know it stands up to the heat. And you can put a thin coat instead of a big blob. And you can make the binder the main strength of the joint. This binding material, this cordage, I mean. The cordage is strong when you have plant fiber. The cordage is the strong part. The glue doesn't have to be the strong part. Okay. Have I used other saps and stuff? The only other sap that I have used is sap from my pecan trees. And in the spring, if the pecan tree has been damaged over the winter, the spring sap is very gooey, and it stays gooey and sticky and very suitable for a soft glue for a very long time. So I've used that before, but it is water-based. It can dissolve with water. You rub it enough or you leave it in water, it will dissolve in water, but it takes a while to dissolve it. So it's a good glue. It doesn't dissolve right away. Other than that, I have tried melting mesquite pitch, but I could get so little of it. I couldn't get very much, so I wasn't able to use it in a joint to haft anything with it. I guess you had to find a really diseased mesquite tree to find a lot of pitch oozing out of it, because I could never find a lot of pitch from the mesquite trees. Although I've heard that it was used extensively in Central America for glue for these type of things. Okay, that's about all I have personal experience with. I know that Ishi used a glue from some sort of plant, some type of sap, but I don't know what it was. And I think he did use pine or pinyon pitch also. And he had a mix. There was a mix. I'll get it out and I'll do some more research and probably do a video on glues again. I did one a long time ago, but it's outdated. I did one on Cutler's resin, I think. Anyway, this is about dry now. I like the way it turned out. You can get this hemp cordage in different colors, so it's pretty cool stuff. This is a heat treat Texas chert. It was gifted to me, this stone, so I'm gifting it to somebody else now. I made the point out of the stone that was given to me. Alright, so I think that's it. I usually sand down most of these bumps on the antler when I make a knife. I don't like a lot of bumps on it. I'll leave some of them in there, but for the most part I like everything to be smooth, and I don't like the burr on the back. Alright, so if you have questions, just ask me in the comments or whatever. Okay, that's it.